Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett. I am so pleased to finally bring you part 2 of Paul F. Tompkins. In part 1, we focused a lot on his origin story and career milestones, and in this one, we focus on all things improv. He talks about his very first episodes of Comedy Bang Bang and his journey of learning how to improvise on podcasts, which is kind of insane and really speaks to the caliber of his genius and talent. If you're a subscriber, do not miss the bonus content that comes with this episode. We do some improv together where we make up characters for each other that we have to play. And if you're not a subscriber, make sure you head to yesalso.supercast.com. Our top tier Second Beats subscribers can now become a part of our close friends on Instagram, where we let them know the guest ahead of time and they can submit specific questions that they want me to ask that specific guest. It's great. Oh, and really quick, I have a small redaction. In my episode with Nicole Byer, we talk about thinking that the Pitt Theater in New York closed after the pandemic. It did not. A very kind listener reached out and let us know that it is alive and well, and he's taking classes there, and it's great. So please go support the Pitt. And now, PFT Part 2. PFT, the one and only. Welcome back.
Susie B.
Hi.
Thanks for having me back.
Oh my goodness. It truly means the world that you would come and do this once, but also twice.
Sure.
Okay, so where we left off, you had been through this sort of a downturn in the mental processing of your career, and this
Yes.
the negative feedback and the why am I an existential crisis of sorts
absolutely.
with stand up.
Yeah.
And then you said, and that's when improv came into my life.
Yes.
Let's start there. How did that arrive?
I had been doing characters on Comedy Bang Bang for a long time, and I had done a couple improv shows, and I really liked it. And I thought, how can I do more of this? And so I started a podcast called Spontaneanation with the idea that I would get great improvisers on the show, and I would be the weakest link on the show. And that's how I would learn improv. So I would surround myself with the best people, and I would note what they did. I would absorb their decisions. I would examine their thought-making process.
I picture you standing behind everyone with a clipboard and
People hated it. They hated it.
one of those rulers that slides open and close, and
A
you're
slide rule?
measuring the size of their mouth as they smile and
Calipers.
Yes.
I was big into measuring people's skulls.
right. Yeah.
And people had mixed reactions to that. Because of the conclusions I drew.
Right.
But that was it. It was what do I like to do? I like to interview people because I was also doing around that time an interview series on YouTube called Speakeasy. And I liked going in without any notes and without really doing a ton of research. I did enough research so that I wouldn't be asking people questions they've been asked a billion times. And what I liked to do was really focus on their answer to see if there was something else to talk about. Rather than ask a question, they answer it, then I ask a completely different question.
Right.
It's I really want to make this as much like a conversation as possible, and to say, well, why did you feel that way, or why did you do that, or whatever, seize on something like that.
Which is the crux of improv.
Exactly.
That is the bones of the skeleton. It's okay, based on what just happened, now where do we go? Rather than I have my list of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is kind of the difference between stand-up and improv.
Yeah.
Is that stand-up, you're going in with your list of things.
Yeah.
And it's not about listening. I mean, you monitor the room, but it really is about people listening to you.
Right.
And you listening to yourself to see, is there a little flight of fancy that I could go on based on something that just occurred to me? Because sometimes doing the same material over and over again, sometimes something will hit your ear differently, even though you've said it 100 times, and you'll be saying, why did I, or that all of a sudden is making me think of something else.
Yeah. Was that cropping up in your stand-up pretty frequently, those flights of fancy?
Yeah, I mean, okay, here's the thing. With Spontaneanation, I was trying to combine a bunch of things that I'd like to do. I would open with a stream of consciousness monologue, which is something that I was doing in my stand-up to kind of open for myself. So I would go out there and just like fuck around and, talk for about 20 minutes. And then I would do my material.
Wow. And it was totally spontaneous 20 minutes every time.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
And that was just like easing the audience in because I wouldn't have an opening act. And it was just like, here's me. And, let's just goof around for a little bit. And then
were they privy to that? Did they know that you were like, would you say like, I'm just gonna, No. So they were like, oh, this could be his written material, or it was pretty obvious.
I guess for some people,
yeah,
it would be. I don't know if I fooled anybody that this was my written material.
Yeah,
but I think that you're not keeping track of how long that's going on,
right?
If you're the audience, it just seems like introduction, like, hey, hi, how is everybody? And I'm talking about this, that, whatever.
Patter.
Obviously, I'm making this up, and then get into the material.
And then once the written jokes start, does that feel like is there like a clear demarcation for like, or does it kind of blend?
I mean, to me it was, I think I would, after that, I would kind of announce like, okay, now I'm going to do material. But the purpose that it also served for me, I realized later, was that it kept me in the moment, even when I was doing the written material. So it put me in a mindset that even though I was doing stuff that I've done before, it enabled me to write on stage in a smoother way. So I could add things to the written material because I was still in that frame of mind of coming up with things on the spot.
It's almost like when you do a Pilates class or something and you're like doing an arm thing, but they're like engage your core. It's like you have to like tell which muscles to turn on. Like you were telling your spontaneous muscle to turn on so that you could hear your stuff with fresh ears and be alive in the moment.
I will say that sounds like a good analogy. I've only done one Pilates class and I almost threw up.
Oh, so
I had never experienced anything like that before.
Yeah.
And it's like I had exercised before.
That means you did it right. It is hell.
It was the wildest experience.
Yeah.
It was a one-on-one thing. I made an appointment with the person who ran the studio and I was like, I want to try this. And so it was like a quick thing. It wasn't a lot of time, but it was enough that I was like, am I going to vomit?
They were like,
now?
We can make you vomit in 3.5 minutes or your money back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She was very sweet.
Yeah.
I did not go back.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah. Okay. So you had already. So you were saying Spontaneanation came out of this desire to.
I liked to riff. I liked to interview people in a spontaneous way, and I liked to play with other people. And my favorite kind of thing, a huge influence on me was doing a show called First Time with Khaki, which was my friend Craig Kukowski.
The wonderful, genius, beautiful Craig Kukowski.
The best.
Yeah.
And he would do this show where he would have somebody on the show he never improvised with before. And he explained beforehand, it could be a bunch of scenes, it could be a mono scene, it could be whatever. And so we did a thing that ended up being a narrative. It wasn't quite a mono scene because we went different places, but it was one story. And that I loved that so much. And I was like, this is what the show is going to be. So I'm going to open up. I'll do a brief monologue. I had Eben Schletter doing music, so he would just kind of play under me. Then I'd interview somebody, and the interview would be based off of a question from the previous guest. So the guest would not know who the next guest was going to be.
Love that.
And so it was just a question. So we start there and it goes where it goes.
That's great.
And then I'll bring in the improvisers and we improvise. I chat with them for a little bit and then we improvise, taking things from the interview, like monologue style, and it just goes where it goes, and Eben scores it. And it was so much fun, and I did it. It's the longest I've ever done a single thing, in a not in a row. What is the word I'm looking for? Continuously.
Yeah.
I did that show for 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
I did that show for 5 years, and I would say the last year is when I started to feel the which I think I discussed last time we talked, the tyranny of the template of like, this is starting to feel like the same to me.
Yeah.
And it's starting to feel less like when I started doing it, it was the challenge of a new thing of I'm throwing myself in the deep end, and I love that. I love being unsure of myself. I love being scared. This is fun to try to keep up with these people.
Yeah.
You know? And then after I felt more confident, more secure, not that I felt like I mastered this form by any means. I felt like, okay, this is starting to feel kind of the same to me. It's feeling less challenging. It's still fun, but it's not quite as fun as it used to be because I know what the format is. I know what we're going to do. And I knew then it was time to wind it down before I hated it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like all of this is colored by the same theme, which is you infusing your work with a sense of I don't know what's going to happen. And once you do know what's going to happen, it kind of dies for you, or it loses the point, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
once
like,
it starts to feel like this is what it is, and I know what it is.
Yeah.
Even though, of course, the episodes were all different, you know,
right?
But they followed the same format, and that format made sense, but I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I want to circle back and explore two paths that branched off here.
Sure.
One is you really glossed over like, so I had been doing characters on Bang Bang, but I want to hear the origin of that. Like, how did Bang Bang come into your life, and what was that like, given that you weren't really an improviser at that point?
Yeah. Bang Bang started as Comedy Death Ray, and when it started...
And that was the live show at UCB? Or
yes,
was this, okay.
That was the live show at UCB, and then when it became a podcast, I think the idea was that Scott Aukerman, the host, would talk to stand-ups. He would have comedians as guests, and then some people would do characters. But it was trying to adapt the stage show to a podcast format. And I'm trying to remember if I was still here when it started, because I remember. Oh, I think I wasn't. I think I was in New York at the time that it started. I was hosting a show called Best Week Ever, that I would end up hosting from New York for a year. And so when it started, I remember Scott saying, hey, do you want to call in? Because he was doing it at a radio station at the time. And he said, you could be yourself, you could be a character. And because he said that, it was the first time I considered it. I don't think I would have, if he hadn't said that, I just would have been myself.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, well, I've been doing characters on Best Week Ever. So why not? I guess I could do that, on this show.
Yeah.
And that was really it.
What was your first character? Do you remember?
It was either Andrew Lloyd Webber or Ice-T.
I get the two confused all the time. And boy, have I embarrassed myself at Grammys parties.
Because they're always both there.
Yes. And they're always dressed the same.
Yes.
Oh, my God. And I'm always trying to show off that I know their work.
Of course.
So, fuck. The amount of times I've come up to Ice-T like, bah, 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 bah. Da, 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 da.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the times you've come up to Andrew Lloyd Webber and screamed "cop killer" in his face.
He got arrested because the whole party thought that I was
You were accusing him of being a... Oh,
Jacques
no.
cop killer.
The Grammy party should know better.
I know. That's where it's just a mess, because everyone's drunk. They're confused.
Exactly. It's just a mess.
It's a
There's
mess.
a false arrest at every Grammy party.
Every single one.
Yes.
Yeah. 90% of the crime in this country is actually false arrests from...
That's interesting. That's an interesting statistic.
Yeah. Look it up.
90%.
Look it up.
False arrests at Grammy parties.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. But look it up. But mark my words.
Moving on, but look it up.
Look it up. Mark my words. It's on the internet. Anyone can find it. Everybody's saying it.
The internet's open to everybody.
Yeah. Unless the liberals get to it and censor it.
Exactly.
But then try to look it up.
Exactly.
You can't.
Could we bring in my friend Tony Hinchcliffe right now?
Oh, love that guy.
So funny.
So funny. So talented. So charming.
What I like about roast comedy is it's the endless refilling of the same ideas.
Right. Has anyone ever done a bit where they're roasting a marshmallow? Where they're like, you are so fucking... Like, You're
so cylindrical.
Yeah. You can't even be delicious until someone puts you on a fire. And then you're liquid. You're not even you. You sell out. Anyway, so you were either Ice-T or Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
Do you remember like being sort of like on the snow skis, being like, oh God, like that feeling of like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. It was like, okay, I have to keep this going.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to film the sketch and I do the written lines and then I riff around that or whatever, and then they edit it. And it's another thing to be on there and... Because I think at the time, I think the show actually went out on the radio in addition to being a podcast.
Wow.
So it was, okay, now you have to do this and you have to keep up. And because somebody's going to keep asking you questions and you have to keep making up answers as this person.
Right.
And it was really fun.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
It's amazing to me. Like, so you're the first person I've talked to who has entered improv in this way, where you're literally diving into the deep end and the deepest end. Because not only are you just doing it with no instruction or no training, but also for a large audience. Like on the radio is pretty big,
Yeah, I mean, it was a news show. I can't imagine there were that many listeners at the time, but
more than 10.
Yeah.
More than most people get at their first student show after they've been training for 8 weeks.
That's a good point.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And okay, so from that, did you feel a jolt of like, oh, I've hit the heroin, like I want to chase this dragon a little bit?
Pretty much, yeah. It was really fun. I mean, because Scott and I were friends, and this was a new way to play that I hadn't experienced before. And it was related to sketch comedy, but without the work of writing a sketch.
Yeah.
So I felt like, okay, this is within the general area of my expertise. I can get good at this.
Yeah.
And, it's still something, character work is still something that I feel I am learning. I think it's where my lack of training betrays me because I know that I am not as solid as some people are, like an Andy Daly, let's say. With character work.
In what way? What do you see him doing that you wish you could do?
I feel like he's never at a loss when he is being a character, and I feel like I sometimes am.
Do you think that shows? Because I've never seen it in you. I don't see the cracks in your play at all. You feel
I
it.
absolutely feel it.
I would.
Yeah,
interesting.
I'll listen back to a show and like, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't. I let too much of myself come through there. Sometimes that's fun. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's on purpose.
Right.
Where it's like, isn't it funny? Scott and I are having this argument,
Right.
Even though I'm this ridiculous person, but now I'm forming this very cogent counter argument to what he's saying.
Right. I have that too, where I'm like, that character wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
on it, Susie, that is such a huge... That's a big part of what it comes down to.
Yes.
That character wouldn't feel that way. That character wouldn't know that.
They wouldn't have that opinion. They wouldn't be that well read.
They wouldn't care about this so much.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the shadow side of that. I have leaned hard in the other direction at times where I'm like rigidly married to what this character would and wouldn't know. And that's a trap too.
Yeah.
Like the last time I was on Bang Bang, I played like a woods woman who like lived at, and she had never seen movies.
Right.
Well, but that shuts the improv down because it's like, okay, so you don't know what that is. You don't know what TikTok is. You don't. And I guess you can find your own fun game within that. But when the other guests are trying to pitch in ideas and you're like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's a real no.
Yeah.
It's no full stop.
Absolutely.
Like we're not talking about that.
I had a character like that where the whole idea was, it was not a very successful character, but it still makes me laugh. The guy's name is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Uh-huh. He doesn't know any pop culture at
Hilarious.
all.
I already love this.
All.
Yeah.
And he's dismissive of it. Uh-huh. He's heard that his name sounds like a Star Wars name.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, what is he into? So he's very into nature. He loves rocks.
Right.
Right? So it's like, but then it's also part of the game is to catch me knowing something that I'm not supposed to know.
Right.
And I like having to try to be funny without making references to things. I enjoyed the challenge of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it's like, I can't say that because I wouldn't know it. So it's not just about, you talking about things that I wouldn't know and I'm dismissive of it. It also has to be, well, what is this guy into? Mm-hmm. How can I be funny without having access to any references at all? And also just making him like a miserable character.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it was it. I did it a couple times. I may do it again. I don't know.
Yeah.
It still kind of makes me laugh, but it's not the greatest. It's not my greatest work.
I like it. I like the idea of it. I haven't heard him, but I like it because it feels.
If you like the idea of it, I'd stop there.
Great.
Yeah.
Then I've completed the
You're
canon.
enjoying the character, I think, as much as it can be enjoyed.
It feels earned. Like if I feel like those people exist in real life. Like if you were born with the name Obi-Wan Kenobi and grew up in this culture where everyone's calling you Obi-Wan, you would almost rebel against that and refuse to watch movies because they're the source of all your bullying.
Great angle, and I wish I thought of it.
Well, it's yours now. You can use it. Nobody's listening to this. Just let this be your cheat sheet. And then while we're here, you give me some pointers.
Sure.
Yeah. But no, some of those, like the nuance of the improv of the characters on Bang Bang is its own bag and its own style.
Too. Yes.
And it's nuanced.
Yeah.
And it's like, in a way, it's like it can be very loose and sloppy because like everybody's breaking. We're all sitting around a table.
Yeah.
There's no audience there. It just feels more casual. Scott's so fun to play with. He gets really ticklish and follows little side trails. On the other hand, it's like he's so fast.
Yeah.
The train tracks are laying down quicker than you need, or the train is coming quicker than you can lay the tracks down.
Yeah.
And once you say something as your character, that becomes the law of the universe.
That's
so
right.
now you have to do a ton of math to be like,
That's
okay,
right.
well, but why would I?
Yeah.
If I hate men, then why was I married, and why does that work with this?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like rapid fire justification.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful exercise. I feel like I have a 10% success rate with it, but also it's so low stakes.
Yeah.
But every time I've heard you do a character, I'm like, oh, it's the best. This is the fucking best.
That's very kind of you.
And the consistency that you have with like accent play and tone.
Thank you. I appreciate that compliment because that matters to me. Like that stuff is a big part of the fun for me. Is being like being as good as I possibly can be at that stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you practice accents and stuff? Or like when you land on a character, are you kind of practicing their tone
I do sometimes,
beforehand?
I do sometimes, yeah, for sure. Because at this point, I've been doing that show for such a long time.
Yeah.
That it's like I've to try to come up with a new voice for somebody is really hard.
Yeah.
It's like, what have I not done yet? I've done... have I done a high voice? Have I done a low voice? Have I done this accent? Have I done that sort of person? You know, what would this person sound like? And it really is. Then I'm starting to get into, this is like 15 years of doing this show.
Yeah.
Now it's into gradations of voices.
Right.
So it's like, this guy kind of sounds like this guy, but here's the crucial difference that makes him his own voice.
Right.
You know?
It's Andrew Lloyd Webber, but Italian.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and like, where do you grab those accents from? Or do they just live in you from watching things?
I think they just live in me from watching things. I think it's like, it's voices that I like and types of voices that I'm drawn to that really tickle me. Like the Andrew Lloyd Webber voice, it doesn't sound anything like the actual Andrew Lloyd Webber, but the extremely exaggerated posh English voice is very funny to me. Mm-hmm. It's like so tortured, you know, with the rolling of the R's and all that. It really, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Can you give me a hit of that right now?
The idea that you are going to speak in such an eloquent way that it takes you that much longer to speak because you are enunciating in such a fashion.
Sir, we just need the name to put on the cup for when your latte is done.
The name? That's a tricky thing. For that is how we are known, both to the world and to ourselves.
Yes, I understand that. We have a massive line.
A rose by any other name. 'Twould smell sweet. Who's to say?
Why don't you write it? And when you're done, you bring the cup back up. God, it's so good.
I love it.
It's like
it's fun, and it's fun to do.
Yes.
Like it's fun to talk that way.
But you're so pitch perfect. Like if I closed my eyes, you are one of those characters from, you know, I feel like it lives in my childhood. Like, like sort of, it's like Mary Poppins adjacent. Yeah. It's like
Masterpiece Theater.
Yes. It's so throwback.
When you're like, why are my parents watching this?
Right.
Can we watch good TV?
Can we watch anything? Can we watch something instead of this? But yeah, and that's where it is like, yes, improv can be learned and you can train at it, but there is the X factor of talent, and you are a rarely talented person. And like you and I've said that phrase before. I don't mean rarely talented. Like I know what once in a while you're talented, but you are a rare talent.
That's very. Thank you.
The ability to like perfectly mimic something that you've heard or seen and let it filter through you with like zero mistakes is pretty unbelievable.
Well, mimicry is a thing that I've loved since I was a kid. I loved imitating things, and I loved the rush you would get when you knew from your little audience of your little friends, oh, I fucking did it.
Yeah.
I fucking made it sound like the thing.
Yeah.
That was such a great feeling.
Yeah.
It's when you see the recognition in people's faces of like, wow, he's really done it. Now, at this point, I'm not a dead-on mimic when I do characters. Like my Werner Herzog it's Werner Herzog-like. It's sure. It's more of the, it's a thing of impressions when it's more capturing the essence of the person than replicating the actual voice.
And it's like your take. It's almost like we talked about before with sketches or with looking at the world with a comedy filter.
Yeah.
What do you find funny about that thing?
Exactly.
What you find funny about Werner Herzog or ridiculous about him might be different than somebody else,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
He's another ridiculous. I've not heard you do him. Can you give me a little Werner Herzog?
The most famous thing was I did this on a live show, and it was recorded, and then eventually it was heard by Werner Herzog. Somebody played it for him, which I still have not listened to. I can't bring myself to listen to it. But he was complimentary about it. But it was a Yelp review of the parking lot of Trader Joe's on Hyperion. And it's actually on Yelp. I put it on Yelp under the name Warner H, so you can read it. But it begins with madness reigns. I can't remember any of the other things that he said. It's like going through the aisles, which are named in such an oblique way. Are the aisles aren't even? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It is
That's
like the way that he expresses himself. It's so funny, and he is a funny person.
It's clownish.
He's funny.
It's clownish pretension. It's almost like he's doing it on purpose. Like he's doing an impression of himself.
He 100% is.
Yeah.
And he really makes me laugh. And his, he has a couple books that he's written. One is his journal of working on Fitzcarraldo, called Burden of Dreams, which is, it's just all about how difficult that fucking shoot was. And the way he expresses himself is so funny. And now he's got an autobiography out called Every Man for Himself and God Against All.
Do you think he's in on the joke?
100%.
Yeah, you think he's like leaning into it like a brand?
Absolutely. Like when he talks about the banality of a chicken, like looking into the eyes of a chicken and seeing like just there's no intelligence there whatsoever and how chilling it is. Like,
yeah.
He's being funny too.
But do you think like he gets home to his wife or his roommate or husband or whoever and goes like,
probably his roommate.
I made up a thing about the chicken today that it made it sound so significant and they bought it and I just sold it to HBO.
I bet he does. Like when the impression was played for him, he said, I read it in print. He said, the accent needs some work, but that's good stuff. And then he said, my congratulations to him. That's a perfect, this guy knows he's fluent in English. Like he's lived here for a long time.
Right.
To choose the phrase, my congratulations to him.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It is.
And you know you're being funny if you say that.
Yeah, it is intentional. Yeah.
Can I say too that I feel, I know I did not give you much Werner Herzog because I do get a little shy about doing the voices just like this. Yeah. And when people ask me to do a voice, like a signing or something like that, we do on the Comedy Bang Bang tour, we do like signings after the shows. I feel weird about it.
Why is that?
It makes me feel like when I was a little kid, like I liked being funny, but when somebody asked me to be funny, they asked me like do a joke or whatever. Yeah. I would fucking clam up.
Yeah, it sucks.
I don't know why it feels different, but it does.
Yeah, I'm sorry to put you in that position.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We're both performers.
Yeah.
And it's like it shouldn't be that, and I don't know why it is in this situation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Maybe it's because like if you're coming into a Bang Bang interview, you've gotten to like recenter yourself in the mindset of that character. It's like running a monologue before you go in to do the audition. Like you have it all kind of like in your bones.
Well, it's also now when we're doing Bang Bang, it's like now we're performing. Yeah. And when we're just talking, to shift into that makes me feel very self-conscious in such a weird little kid way. Yeah. And I it's funny to me that I can't just like turn it on. I don't know. It makes me feel embarrassed.
I'm so sorry.
Not at all.
But also
it's my problem. It's not your problem.
And also it's not a problem. I think it's lovely. Like I mean, this speaks to your vulnerability and honesty and authenticity. And it makes sense. Like you have at this point hundreds of characters under your belt or in your canon. Like that's not an exaggeration. And with all of that living in here on like a giant roulette wheel, for me to isolate one and be like, do that now. It's like, yeah, like it was amazing that you just whipped out what you did.
You're being very generous.
Well, and you did 2 back to back. I don't know. It makes
generous.
sense to me.
I appreciate it. That's all I ask.
But no, yeah.
Please tell me I make sense.
Please tell me it makes sense, right? I am the anti-David Byrne. I wanted to drill into that moment though, because it is interesting. Like, why does it feel like the opposite? Why does it feel bad and weird and naked when someone says do it or be funny versus when you decide to do it? It's like a control thing. It's also an inspiration thing. Like comedy, I'm thinking as I go here. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think like there is a spark of inspiration that creates a comedic moment. Yeah. And that's the like impetus for it. Like that's the joke wanting to be born. And if somebody else is like, just be funny, it's like, well, but the thing isn't there.
Because when somebody asks you to do it, now there's a feeling of expectation that you don't have when you're doing it of your own volition.
Right.
That you're like, because you're sort of saying, you don't know what I'm about to do, and you're going to laugh at it.
Right.
But if somebody says, make me laugh, tell me a joke.
Right.
You know.
And that takes away 80% of what comedy is, which is the element of surprise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if someone's like, I'm waiting, I'm ready, and I think I know what this is going to sound like, but just in case, you tell me. There's no surprise there.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've figured it out. Sorry you had to be embarrassed in order for us to arrive at this important...
Look, I walked in here embarrassed. You know what I mean? Perfect. And I'll walk out of here the same way.
Oh, man.
I also think that it makes me think of... In on the topic of creating characters and feeling kind of exposed like that, now that I'm doing my I do a variety show where I've started doing my characters on stage, and so there's a fun of that of, oh, now I get to actually put together a look for this character. What does this character look like? They've been disembodied voices.
So you do that's in your show. That's not in Bang Bang Live. This is the Varietopia.
Well, we've done Bang Bang Lives where we've done costumes a long time ago.
Oh, funny.
And then it just got to be like the more people that are on the show, other people are not doing costumes. Like, well, if you're not doing a costume, I'm not gonna fucking.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be the dork that shows up in a full.
Why do I have to change my clothes in a bathroom if you're not going to?
Yeah.
But doing them in the variety show, it was like, yeah, for sure, this has to be a costume. Got to do it all the way, you know. And there's the fun of putting together the visual component of that. But then it's like, okay, without somebody asking me questions. If this is just a solo thing, I'm going to go out there and be this character. That is a whole different thing that I now have to learn. That's entirely different of I can do a stand-up set and I know how to structure that, make it funny. To do a character set, have jokes in there, have a satisfying ending, you know, introduce the character to people that don't know who it is.
Right.
Because there's some people that know, some people that don't know. My fan base is like, I am convinced that anybody who likes me from one thing, and they have no idea about the other things. And so I have to go in there knowing that I'll come out as a character. Because I will say like, hi, I'm Cal Solomon. And there will be like 4 people who are like, hooray. And it's like, okay, I have to explain who I am to everybody else. That's been a fun new challenge.
Yeah.
And especially getting to do, you know, when I toured with my show earlier this year, I was doing a character called Original Fig, which I created on the Teacher's Lounge podcast. And it was my first time using my Philadelphia accent.
Okay.
Without making it about him he's not necessarily from Philadelphia. It's just like, here's a voice I haven't done yet, but that I can do.
Is this a riff on Notorious B.I.G. or no?
I'll tell you exactly where the name came from. Was being at the Earwolf studio and being in the kitchen and seeing on a some snack bar, the flavor was original fig. I'm like, original? What the fuck does
yeah. What? Who has fucked with fig?
did this company like their first thing was fig, and then they're like, we gotta pay homage to the one that started it all.
Right. Original
fig.
Yeah. Ground floor, baby.
Yeah,
Fig.
I just thought it was a funny name.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where you read it and all of a sudden it's a name to you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
LA Phil. My friend Jessie Glasgow. Shout out to Jessie Glasgow. For years, like anytime we drove by one of those billboards, she'd be like, "Look, it's LA Phil," and it was like Gustavo Dudamel with his hair all in the. Like,
I love that I never read it that way. And now I will never see it any other way.
You cannot see it any other
LA
way.
Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's always like in
Yeah.
the throes of passion, like squinty-eyed and like sweating.
Phil!
Yeah, what's up, Phil?
Phil's crushing it. LA Phil.
And Phil is such a casual name for that guy in like a Looney Tunes tuxedo.
Yeah.
Tails and yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
so that's Original Fig. So
but what is the character of Original Fig? What's the character game?
He owns a liquor store. He owns a liquor store called Gethsemane Liquor and Scratcher.
Liquor and Scratcher.
Which and a joke that I do is that I didn't realize how filthy the name was until after the sign was made.
Right. It's just you sell scratch lotto tickets
We
and
sell liquor and we sell scratch off lotto tickets. But that was also a genuine thing that happened to me.
Oh, funny.
Is that I didn't think about it until afterwards. When I saw it written out, when I was putting the character together to do it on stage, and I had little notes, and when I wrote it out, I was like, oh my God, Liquor and Scratcher.
That's so great.
It's kind of naughty.
Yeah.
And adding stuff. So first I listened back to that Teacher's Lounge episode, and then I'd done it on Bang Bang once or twice. I was like, okay, this is really fun to do. Here's some things I know. Now I get to choose from the funniest things that I've already said that take place over the course of these interview style things. I'm like, okay, that I can plug that in. And the thing that I'm still working on is the build. So it's like, I have like the build, but I do not have the ending. I don't have like I have like a very funny last thing, but it doesn't quite feel like the perfect dismount, you know? And so that's the thing that I'm still working on.
And this is when you're doing these as monologues in your show. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So I now have like some visual elements that I can add to it, which is really fun. And that's another, like incorporating another skill that I'm trying to learn is doing graphics and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we have a screen on the stage. So now that's another way to be funny.
Yeah.
Is to add that in. But it's still humbling. Like I still have a thing that I have to figure out, you know.
It's so interesting because you're given all the like slices of pie in your background. Like this is incorporating your sort of early absurdist stand-up days, your Mr. Show sketch writing days. Like, not that that's the only sketch that you did, but it's like because Mr. Show was like also using video and stuff. It's like you're and then the spontaneity and the live character stuff of Bang Bang. You're like putting all of those in a soup together, but yet you're the perfect person to do that. It's like this is the one-man show of your life or your skills, like culminating in this kind of work. Yeah,
it truly is.
At least for now, until you decide to be a violinist next year and like enter the symphony on day one with no training.
God damn,
we'll talk about that when it happens.
I wish I could play an instrument so bad.
You will. As soon as you pick one up, you'll be like, oops, I'm a harpsichordist. Never knew.
I can tell you that's not true. Based on the times that I've picked up instruments.
Yeah. Based on the times you picked up a harpsichord.
That kind of
your back out.
discipline is fascinating to me. To fucking like people that started learning guitar when they were kids.
Yeah, that's
like,
me.
I just taught myself. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that? Why don't I have that thing?
You still can.
But I know I'm not going to.
Sure. If not during COVID, then never. Honestly, that was the time.
That was the
time. World paused for you to learn guitar, and you didn't do it.
I could have come out a piano player.
Yeah.
I could have come out of COVID a piano player.
Yeah.
It would have been like fucking Groundhog Day.
Oh God, I love
like
that.
All of a sudden, oh, you didn't? Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, I play the piano.
Isn't it rude that the teacher takes credit for it? She's like, he's my student. It's like in her perception,
Susie,
he's just come in one day.
I did a fucking presentation on this on Dropout on a show called Smarty Pants.
Oh, I like that show.
Because it has bothered me since I saw that movie in theaters. That they were so in love with that joke that they kept it in.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It makes me so mad.
It makes her the biggest dick in the world. You can't claim credit for a guy who just like came in and was already also, a virtuoso.
Why would he go in that
Why
last
would he
day?
go in?
He doesn't need to. If he's playing the piano like that,
right?
He hasn't seen her in months.
Right. Right.
Why? How could he? It doesn't make sense from any angle.
Yeah, you're not learning that much in your 30-minute lesson with a lady sitting on the bench with you. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense from any angle, and it bothers me they kept that joke in. It wasn't worth it.
No.
It's a cheap joke. It wasn't worth it. Dropout, Smarty Pants.
It's a great show.
It's a great show.
I'll have to watch that episode.
Yeah.
Comedians do PowerPoints on things, anything. To tie up the other loop that's like living in my brain right now, when you talked about like being at the table full of improvisers and you were learning from them and taking notes.
Yeah.
What were those early lessons? What were the things that you were absorbing and going like, ooh, do that, don't do that? It
would be lessons in how to heighten something gradually, especially if you're trying to we have like 25 minutes to do this one story. And we would have a sound effects board, 3 big buttons in the middle of the table, past, present, and future. So you could go backwards in time to explain how something happened. You go forward in time if you wanted to advance the story. And then the middle button was a sort of cut to, like, here's what's happening at the same time somewhere else.
I love that.
Yeah, it was really fun.
And it would give the sound effect?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Some people embraced it and loved it. Some people they did not want to touch that fucking thing at all.
Right.
But because it was a thing that I wanted the ability to do that without saying we cut to.
Yeah.
I wanted it to, because if you're just listening to it, it's more fun.
This is cleaner. It offers, I think, it makes it more in the spirit of the actual genre than having, because in a radio show, you don't have the character going like, and meanwhile across town. Like maybe you have a narrator saying that. But
it keeps it in the theater of the mind.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is the great thing about podcasts.
Yes.
Is that you can do anything.
Yeah.
So I would learn, how to heighten gradually, when is a good time to, bring in a new development, when it's a good time to lay out, which is honestly the biggest fucking lesson, for somebody who is eager to jump in all the time. It's like knowing when, oh yeah, this doesn't need me. This is going great and it doesn't need me and it's funny and I don't need to jump in here with anything. Watching when people, like, again, Craig Kukowski, who is a real, I feel like has the best instincts of when to enter and when to lay out.
Yeah.
Like I took a lot from watching him, biding his time, and also like the biggest lesson is letting shit go, where it's like, I have a funny thing, I want to get in there, and then recognizing that it's gone.
Yeah.
That moment is gone. It doesn't make sense. It would be so much work to try to get that back in now. And that was, for me, a huge personal lesson because I can be a perfectionist. I can be a control freak. I can dwell on things that didn't go the way that I wanted them to go. When I'm trying to, it was a thing that frustrated me about the variety show before. It was like, if a sound cue didn't happen when it was supposed to happen, if somebody didn't know their lines for a sketch, whatever, I would get so mad. that the audience did not get to see it the way I had envisioned it. And it would really bother me, really bother me. And doing this show, Spontaneanation, it helped me so much to let go of things and to say that didn't happen the way that I wanted it to happen. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's not worth thinking about. The only thing you can get from it is, well, what can I do differently next time?
Yeah.
How can I do better next time?
Yeah.
And that to me was learning improv was a method of personal growth for me to say, I got to let it go.
Right.
And knowing that the sun will shine again, that I have another chance to do this, even within the same half hour. It's like, okay, that fucking was a clunker.
Right.
I have another chance though. There's more chances. It's not over, and the idea of that's built into it to let things go, to not dwell on your failures, but take what you can from it and go forward, was something that I sorely needed to learn.
Yeah.
And it's not like I don't still dwell on things from time to time, but I can tell you that when shit doesn't go the way I want it to go in a show now, I'm like, that's too bad.
Right.
And I let it go.
Yeah.
And the most I think about it is, well, if I want to do that kind of thing, how can I prevent this thing from happening so that it does go off the way I want it to go, rather than getting angry about it, rather than getting sad or whatever. It's just, it becomes instructional.
My therapist taught me about this phrase, the second arrow. Do you know about this? It's like a Zen parable about the first arrow was the one that hit the man who wasn't expecting it, and that hurt. But then he threw a second arrow at himself when he said, you're so stupid. Why did you leave yourself vulnerable? Why did you get hit by that arrow? And the sting of the second arrow lasts longer and is more cutting than the first, but it's preventable.
Yeah.
We are the ones throwing the second arrow.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what you're getting at here is shit goes wrong all the time. And actually that's part of the beauty of the art form of improv.
Yeah.
The audience sees the warts. It is a high wire act. And P.S., if you do it completely perfectly every time, it becomes a little boring.
Yeah.
The once in a while fall and gripping the wire and climbing back up makes it thrilling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're all stumbling through. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. We're playing.
Which is, that is the macro lesson about life.
Yeah.
Is that nobody has it all figured out. And anyone who tells you that they do, you absolutely have to beware of that person. Mm-hmm. That to me is the lesson about cults.
Right.
Is anybody who tells you they have a shortcut to the thing that you're looking for, if you're looking to be happy or content or enlightened or whatever, if they say they have a shortcut, do not believe that person.
Especially if they're asking for money.
Especially.
Right.
If you're that enlightened, why aren't you giving this shit away for free?
Right. Yeah. In these, so in the scope of your improv now, including Spontaneanation and Varietopia, Bang Bang, all this stuff, how often are you doing shows that aren't recorded, where you're just doing a show and it just lives in that moment?
Right now, not that much.
Yeah.
Right now, not that much. I do, I do like being asked to do holy shit improv and stuff like that. But I just haven't, it's been such a chaotic kind of year.
Yeah.
Not chaotic. I should say it's been a lot of, it's been a very scheduled year. So it leaves me less time and energy to do that stuff. But man, I really like doing that.
Yeah.
I love just jumping up with no expectation and that this is purely going to live here tonight and that's it.
because
It's
I think
really fun.
that helps. That's kind of an antidote to some of that feeling of like perfectionism
For
and
sure.
control.
For
Because
sure.
I find myself when I'm like I get more nervous for Bang Bang if I've had like a flop of a character, and then I'm like, but now like people are hearing that, and
Yeah.
like now it's diluting my reputation.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
ugh, you can get in your head about that stuff because it like
Yeah.
lives forever now.
Absolutely.
But on stage, it's like, these people are gonna see it, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's gone, and I
Yeah.
farted, and who cares?
Yeah.
You know,
Everybody knows.
everybody knows.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is what it is, and then it's over. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about like next steps for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any inkling of what the next like ticklish thing you want to chase is, or are you in this moment and waiting for it to arrive?
I think I'm waiting for it to arrive. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I have been, that has been a change for me is in doing this variety show, which I've done off and on for decades. I'm allowing myself to be sincere when I sing, which is, I've always sung. I was in choir in school, and I was in musicals in high school. And I knew that I wanted music to be a part of this show, and I would do a song with the musical guest. And it took me years to get to the point where it's like, I'm just going to sing as well as I can. I'm not going to do little funny asides. I'm not going to, make a joke of this. There could be something funny in the song. Like there could be a mashup of two different songs. There could be like something fun in the arrangement. But it's not going to be a comedy time, and it's going to be. I would rather be clever in that moment than be, than not try to embrace the sincerity of it.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's been really fun. But I had to give myself permission to do that. But it's also because comedy people being sincere is fucking rough, man. It's like it
rare.
it can be very cringy, and you have to. I think I had to approach it in a way that was true to me, so that it wouldn't be perceived as, I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. I'm not trying to. I think it helps that I'm not writing my own music. But that might be something I might want to do at some point.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Yeah,
you'd be great.
I might
at
want to
it.
do that.
Yeah.
I used to write poetry and songs when I was younger, and stuff that I would absolutely never show anybody.
Or maybe you should, like, sincerely singing a song that you wrote at age 7 I would line up for that.
I don't know if I could ever do that.
Okay.
I mean, that to me that's the final boss
Yeah.
of not giving a shit.
Yeah.
Is being able, because I can laugh at myself a bit, but I have a very hard time looking backwards at myself and giving that past version grace.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me.
Of course.
And I should, I mean, but I'm like, even like the me from 10 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I could give myself from last year, like, hey man, you're trying the best you could.
Right.
But the further back it gets, like, you fucking idiot. Because it's like, you set me up.
Right.
You set me up.
Yeah. The long con.
I'm mad now because of what you did. Yeah. The long con. Yeah.
That's so funny. Time traveling back to your 7-year-old. You set me up.
There was a friend of mine. I've told this story many times because I think about it so much. A friend of mine told me she was in therapy, and the therapist asked her. She's talking about something that happened in her childhood, and the therapist said, "And what would you, if you could talk to little Amy, what would you say to her?" And my friend said, "Thanks a fucking lot." It's like, that was so pure to me. That was so pure to me.
God. It's a fucking lot.
Thanks a fucking lot. I did a thing. I've been doing a thing recently where I've run out now, but I had VHS recordings of my old high school shows.
Amazing.
And so I would do like an actor's commentary on them. So I would like do clips and then talk over them. And there was something that was very cathartic about that, of revisiting a time when I knew at the time, I thought, I'm fucking crushing this.
Right. Broadway, here I come.
I feel sorry for the rest of you.
Right.
That you're not up on my level. And to look at that and know that's what was going on in my brain, and then look, and now knowing, you idiot, here's what you were thinking. Here's what you were thinking the whole time.
Yeah.
It's been enjoyable to me.
Yeah.
It's been very enjoyable to me. And to act and to share that with people, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm able, like another thing is seeing my old stand-up. That was the thing that I did over quarantine, was digitize all these fucking VHS tapes that I've been carrying around for years.
Carrying them around everywhere you go in
Everywhere
a giant Santa sack.
Oh yeah, literally everywhere.
Yeah, carrying them around.
Yeah. Just a big banker's box.
Yep.
Can I put this here?
Do you guys mind? Do you have a coat check?
You can't look in there.
No. That's just for me.
But my old stand-up, that is, you want to talk about cringe. That shit is hard to watch.
But I feel like there's just like the formula tragedy plus time equals comedy. There is a threshold where when enough time passes,
absolutely,
it becomes funny.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember that show Mortified? Did you ever see that?
Yes.
People reading from their old diaries and stuff. I mean, it's just genius.
But hats off to those people.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. Is there anything you would like to plug today that is different from yesteryear?
Yeah, let me say that I'll be doing the last Varietopia show of the year. Will be Saturday, November 23rd in Charleston, South Carolina. It's the day after the anniversary of JFK's assassination, so if you're not too hungover from partying, come on out. And then there's going to be another Varietopia tour in the new year, and we'll be announcing that pretty soon. All the dates and
in the new year is the 25th anniversary of the day that we dodged the Y2K fear.
That's exactly right.
So come on out and celebrate.
That's right. And what we do is we watch a laptop tick over from 11:59 to midnight.
And then we drink all the water that we hoarded and drive around in circles to empty our gas tanks that we filled for no reason.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I can't wait to improvise with you.
Yeah,
Let's
I know.
get you on stage.
I know.
Yeah.
We never have, right?
No.
We've never done sces together.
We've only done a Bang Bang episode, but that's not
Yeah,
staged.
we'll make it happen.
We will.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
If you like this podcast, you can support us and get a ton of bonus content over at yesalso.supercast.com. If you have a question about improv that you'd like us to answer on one of our future Q&A episodes, send it on over to yesalsopod@gmail.com. Remember to follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod, and keep sharing us with your improv communities. We love the love. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They will see. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.